Baseball cards now worth a fortune. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, baseball was something different. It defined states, neighborhoods, people, and even culture. People used to admire some players and even use them in their wallets as one of those inspiring pictures that we used to look at during those days to be inspired. I don't know if we still do that, but during my days, we loved baseball. It was everything we had in our sports arena. For the most part, this was also before the advent of stimulants and steroids. Not surprisingly, those years also gave birth to some of baseball's greatest dynasties, the Atlanta Braves and New York Yankees, and pitchers Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, and of course, the great of all time, Pedro Martinez. Well, that's according to me at least. The batters, runners, and studs on defense, Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, Ricky Henderson, Frank Thomas, also in my opinion. It was also a period when baseball card makers began to branch out creatively, ushering in a golden age for the hobby, despite the abundance of goods available. Today's video will offer a detailed look at the most expensive vintage baseball cards and the athletes they feature. So with that said, here are some baseball cards now worth a fortune. But before we dig in, it's also wise to understand that there are a million of these cards, and it would be impossible to compile a comprehensive list of the most expensive baseball cards from the 80s and 90s. Still, we've done our best to choose some of the most interesting and historically significant players. You can probably locate more valuable ones, but we sorted some that have historical significance, making them different from others that you might see. The 1987 Donruss Barry Bonds. The hologram gold rookie card is one of those cards in history that not only comes with a price but also memories. If you're among the few collectors who are fortunate enough to have one of them, you might expect to get a sizable payout. In his classic pinstriped New York Yankees outfit, Derek Jeter fields a pop fly in a relaxed spring training pose for the baseball card. If you have one and it's in decent shape, you may easily expect to make a lot of thousands of dollars. For starters, Jeter's a first-round Hall of Famer and played his whole career with the Yankees. He won the AL Rookie of the Year award and the World Series MVP award, in addition to his other accolades. As captain of the Yankees, Derek Jeter became one of the team's most recognizable faces and fan favorites. There are a number of factors that make this card one of the most valuable from the 80s and 90s, and as I said before, it all comes down to history. And Deck has nothing left but a history of the greatest, making this card one of the most special cards of all time. The 1983 Finest Refractor Ken Griffey. The incredible Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card has been valued at a staggering sum. Recently, it's been selling like hotcakes at auction. The card depicts Griffey Jr. rocking a quintessential 90s style as he trots down the first baseline. The bright colors and vintage typeface at the top make this card stand out. The auction house fetched almost $7,000 for this beauty, which is among the best-looking cards of the 1990s. The baseball world was revolutionized by Ken Griffey Jr. He did everything in a unique way, from how the greats before him played and behaved to how they struck out. He was emblematic of a new age of Major League Baseball players and will go down in history as one of the sport's all-time greats. Griffey was named AL MVP and appeared in 13 All-Star games. Furthermore, he was the recipient of 10 Gold Gloves and 7 Silver Sluggers throughout his career. More than 99% of the committee voted to induct him into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, making the player not only the best but also the greatest, and the same goes for his cards. The 1991 Topps Desert Shield Chipper. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's that the Atlanta Braves were blessed with a legend, and the form in which the legend was sent to them was through the great Chipper Jones. Jones spent his whole career in the Braves club, something that's unlikely in the modern age of free agency. He won the World Series and was an All-Star 8 times. He led the AL in home runs 4 times and earned 7 Silver Slugger trophies. The sum of these factors ensures that his cards from the 80s and 90s are among the most sought after and most expensive. Very few of these cards exist at all, and even fewer are in pristine condition. Chipper Jones is seen carrying the baseball bat on his shoulders on the trading card. These cards hold a price tag of approximately $10,000, making them one of the most valuable baseball cards ever produced. Topps Frank Thomas 1990. Whatever the case may be, mistake cards are highly prized by collectors because there are far fewer of them available on the market. They're popular either way. This 1990 Topps Frank Thomas is a decent discovery, but it isn't as exciting as the erroneous picture Barry Bonds card we discussed before. Apparently, when Topps removed the card from the press, some of them lacked Frank Thomas's name. Yeah, it's an unsigned photo of the giant Frank Thomas. When auctioneers and bidders get carried away, the price of this card rises above $20,000. Yeah, you heard that right, over $20K. Thomas is widely regarded as one of baseball's all-time best designated hitters due to his 2 AL MVP awards and batting championship. The 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. If we are all to agree, then I am sure one of the most recognizable playing cards of all time should be the 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck. The flagship card has dominated not only the collecting industry, but also the history it portrays. And if you're lucky enough to have the limited editions that Griffey himself signed, then you own something of value. These cards have sold for more than $10,000, and their demand continues to rise with time. The 1985 Topps Tiffany Mark McGwire. Anyone who was into baseball cards in the 80s should recognize this, and the card has no specific features that portray the picture of the great Topps. In the picture on the card, a young Mark McGwire looks straight into the camera with a silly smile on his face. He's also sporting his red, white, and blue Team USA outfit and has the bat draped over his shoulder. Even if it's not quite as precious as the Jeter up top, a well-preserved example may sell at auction for close to $3,000. T206 White Borders Honus Wagner. With just 50 copies made, the T206 Honus Wagner is considered the holy grail of baseball cards. This card's value has skyrocketed thanks to its limited print run. Honus Wagner, a standout for the Pittsburgh Pirates, is largely responsible for the card's high value. As a result, the American Tobacco Company was forbidden to make more of the card, limiting the supply. Story is that Wagner didn't want kids to have to spend money on smokes in order to receive his card. There was talk that he was trying to increase his royalty payments. Because of their great value, authentic T206 Honus Wagner baseball cards are difficult to come by. But if you own one and visit the PSA, Professional Sports Authenticator, grade for absolute certainty. In 1988, Craig Biggio recorded a home run. Many lists of the most valuable baseball cards from the 80s and 90s will not include this card, but it certainly makes this one, at least the Biggio fans can agree with me. Despite his diminutive stature, Houston Astros outfielder Craig Biggio always managed to get the job done. His rookie card may be obtained for a reasonable sum and serves the purpose of a good trade card well. A scorecard with Biggio in his early 2000s Astros uniform at the plate sold for $300 at auction, making it one of the most valuable cards ever produced by the company. Biggio, a future Hall of Famer who played in 7 All-Star games and was honored with the Roberto Clemente Award, is a baseball legend. A 1993 SP Foil Derek Jeter. Anyone who is into baseball cards in the 80s should recognize this card. It has no unique qualities, just the great Derek Jeter on the card. How do the most expensive baseball cards from the 70s, 80s, and 90s stack up to today's baseball cards? How intriguing! It's clear from what we've been saying in this video that these cards are worth a lot of money, and that's in large part because of how iconic and historical they are. As we've already discussed, the 80s and 90s are renowned for the mass-produced cards that were released at the time. As a result, they won't be as valuable as some of the ultra-rare cards from the current era. In fact, many modern cards are limited to editions of 100 or even something less. That's a rather small sample size when compared to the hundreds upon thousands of cards in each of the prior postings, which helps to explain the discrepancy in price. However, none of these contemporary cards can compare to the beauty of the vintage ones. This is just what we think. If you disagree, then I think we need to assess even further, but I'm sure you agree. The choice rests solely with you, as it does with most things in life. Some considerations to think about include how much room the cards are taking up in your home, how attached you feel to them emotionally, and how much money they're costing you. Therefore, I'll provide a few alternatives to consider. You won't be selling at rock bottom if you sell your sports cards now because of the significant appreciation they've seen over the previous decade. It may go up much more. But if you need the money now, no one will blame you for selling at a premium. A bet on the market's upward trend? You just can't bear to part with a particularly poignant greeting card, but you know you should. Don't worry, compromise is always possible. You may benefit from the current market situation by selling off part of your collection and storing the rest away for the future. Investment strategy. The list has no currently active players, thus it won't have much of an immediate impact. Moreover, they're already in the Hall of Fame, so you can't even rely on that value-enhancing event. When shorting, you bet on the market as a whole moving up. While it's possible to achieve this, greater success is more likely to occur in the future. So if you own any of these cards, then you should consider visiting more card action and weigh in their values. In terms of a medium-term investment strategy, I would say that these cards, again, you're placing your faith in the health of the market as a whole, which is shown to be a solid bet in recent times. And lastly, for a long-term investment, all I can say is that if finding the rarest baseball cards from the 80s and 90s is a fun adventure and nostalgia, whether you're new to the hobby or a seasoned collector, for collectors whose interest began around the turn of the century in particular, though there were problems with overproduction during the time period, there are still many cards that are sure to bring in a lot of money at auction. The key is to zero in on the best candidates. As a result of all the above, and especially because of the legendary athletes shown on the cards, you should consider adding the mentioned sets to your collection.